Hello, welcome to my channel or welcome back. Today we are going to do a palette tournament and we're going to see how these palettes stack up in my collection against each other. I only have these palettes at this time and I am going to rate them on their original quality more than, if they're older, because it feels like that's not fair. If I have a brand new palette, it already is going to have some of the shiny, happy feelings of it being new. And if the formula is also, at its best compared to a palette that's, on the old side, then that just doesn't seem fair. So I'm going to rank it kind of more off the color story and original formula. So if this sounds interesting, then please keep watching. All right, so the way we're going to do this, I am going to use my Tiny Decisions app and just roll in 2 palettes at a time. So, the palette that I might expect to be the winner might not be. And to be, well, yeah, I think we kind of know. If you've been watching my channel for a while, then you should know that if I had to pick just one of these palettes, it would be the Sickly Sweet palette right here. So, some other favorites I can kind of say off the top of my head would be the Rogue palette. I've also really been liking the Nomad palette. The Fairy Tale Fairies is a good color story. The formula for the shimmers could be better. But yeah, that's kind of what we're thinking of. And technically I have another palette that is depotted. I'm not going to count it because I just treat them as singles at this point. So we're just going to stick with these 10 eyeshadow palettes. All right, so the first 2 palettes we're going to bring in Prados the Matriarch and Rogue. All right, well, I think that we kind of have a little spoiler here since I already mentioned that the Rogue palette is one of my favorites. So if we're looking at this Matriarch palette, I do like that I can get a lot of different colors from it. I like, that we have the black, so I could use it as an eyeliner. I can use the brown in my eyebrows. I have used some of these as blush before, so it's, a nice all-around type of palette. I do actually like that it doesn't have a mirror. I don't need a mirror, and sometimes it's just like something extra to worry about, it breaking or being careful with it. So I like this cardboard packaging and all too. So I'm kind of, thinking about all of that. And the quality is actually good. It's, the shades are pretty pigmented. I like the mattes more than I like these satin shades. The satin shades I think have dried out from when I first got this palette because it's not brand new, but they also just, are just satins. They're not really anything super special. So I need to have, something else with it if I want that sparkle. So that's something to think about. And there is also something to be said for it being so big that sometimes it's annoying. Like that would be something about my Sickly Sweet, that it is quite big. So when okay, so that just really threw me off my game. I'm sorry. Apparently all of a sudden I was out of phone space, and so I'm not sure where I had left off. I think I was talking just basically about how it's, having a big palette is more cumbersome. And it also means I can't travel with it just because it doesn't fit my makeup bag. So I'd have to just put it loose in my suitcase, and I don't want to do that. So there we are with this palette. Now, if we're looking at the Rogue palette, so this palette, you can see I've got those sparkly shades that I was talking about. I also have eyeshadow colors that I do enjoy. Even this green, which murky greens are not always my thing, but I do actually really like this. I'm also not always a huge blue person, but this one is really pretty when I use it, and it does work really well with all of these shimmers. I think that's kind of the main thing here, is that all these shades are cohesive, and I don't even have to think that hard to make a good look. Every time I use this palette, I make a good look that I'm happy with. And I've got some lightness, I've got medium, I've got dark, I've got the sparkly. Like I said, this is going to be my winner for these 2 palettes. And I think I'm just going to go ahead and say then that that is the first winner from this. So now the next two palettes that are going up against each other, the winner from that will end up going against the Rogue palette later. But let's go ahead and narrow it down more. Okay, so Citrus Punch against Stone Vibes. Okay, so this is going to be interesting because I'll start with Citrus Punch. So Citrus Punch is a palette that I was gifted. So someone had already had it. I don't know how old it is. So, you know, I have to think about that. I will say the mattes in general are good. The shimmers are good. The problem is that this was their old formula. So you have the issue of hard pan happening if you try to swatch or, you know, use your fingers, which I like to use my fingers, especially with shifty shades when I'm planning looks, because I want to kind of swatch it and layer it over different eyeshadows to see how it's going to look. And these are also more on the topper side, which you want to know how they will, you know, transform with the different mattes. So that's a little bit of an annoyance with this palette. I do really love these types of colors though. Like these are the greens that I like where they're nice and punchy. I love yellows and pinks and oranges together and on their own. So, okay, so that's where we're at for this palette. For Stone Vibes, this is a palette that I have been panning. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna put a picture of the original Stone Vibes on the screen just because, one, I don't want spoilers for what's happening in here. And it also doesn't seem fair when it's in its not best condition right now to be showing you. So this palette, the mattes are okay. I don't know, is Urban Decay known for their matte eyeshadows? Not that I really know of. Are they really known for their quality? Or is it more just, you know, going into the hype and people really liked the neutral things? I don't know. I've always gone for their more fun palettes. So I do really like the sparkles. They do have fallout. I feel like the formula, gosh, it's really coming down to the shimmers here versus I feel like the shimmers here I like more, especially when it was at its peak. So I think even though I like this color story more, I might have to go with the Stone Vibes just because the formula doesn't have that kind of issue. Like I can put them on with my finger or a brush, and I can't say the same thing for this palette. So this Stone Vibes is actually going to be my winner from this round. I am shocked. I didn't think it would make it very far. All right, next. Juicy Boost against Pacific Northwest. All right, well, we've got colorful and bright and cheerful against these murky Pacific Northwest vibes. So with this palette, it is brand new to me still. Like even though I've had it for a bit, I think of it as brand new. Okay, this is so funny. I never have all these interruptions. I just got a phone call because we were trying to get the shots for the kids, but they had been out. It was a whole thing. But anyway, it's all fine and taken care of. Anyway, so because this palette still feels new to me, it's going to kind of have that, like I said, that shiny, happy feeling then for me. The shimmers are great. I feel like they are shiny and sparkly, but they don't have fallout. The mattes are also, like even these dark ones don't give me fallout unless I'm being on the really sloppy side. But if I'm putting them on normally, it's been okay. And even like this blue is usually a difficult type of shade for me with fallout from other palettes and things like that. But it's been fine. I like that, you know, there's some lighter shades, the medium. I like that there's different types of tones in here, that there is murky, but then more neutral. I don't know. this is kind of a good neutral palette for me. Even I know it's colorful, but it still feels kind of neutral. So yes, this is definitely a really good palette. So now for this Juicy Boost. So this, we've got this set of shades and this set here. So I will say that this pink shade was, I don't know, it's a little challenging sometimes to work with because it can have sort of fallout. It's just more flaky, and it was always like that. I also have to be careful with this blue for fallout, even though it's really pretty. This is a really pretty shade as well. I do really like, I feel like this section of the palette the most because the bright shades, like these are colors that I like to wear a lot, and you can see the dips even though they're very pigmented, so I don't need a lot of it, but I have made a lot of use out of this part. And then on this side, I do like pink, but this shade doesn't work well. There's something about the formula, it just goes on patchy, even though I do think the color is pretty. And I like this orange. This shade, I feel like I want it to be murkier than it is. It's just kind of a weird, I don't know how, it just seems kind of boring or something when I use it. It's not the type of color that I expected. I guess I expected it to be almost more like this murky shade down here, but brown, and it's not. This green and this blue, they are actually pretty. I do like this green. But I've got to say, I am, you know, even when this was brand new, this palette is going to beat it out. I love my bright, colorful types of shades, but it's not as, you know, it's not the perfect, bright, colorful type of thing. Like, if it was between this palette and the Citrus Punch, I think then the Citrus Punch might have won out because the mattes are really good and it's like those types of colors. But yeah, so I'm gonna say no to the Juicy Boost. And so we've got the Dollhouse against Fairy Tale Fairies. All right, so the Dollhouse, we've got this very neutral eyeshadow palette, and that was kind of why I got it. I wanted my perfect neutral type of look with it. And then we've got this color story, which is also a type of color story I love, where I've got these pastels, pink, blue, green, like this is, you know, and purple, like that's all good. I do still have that issue with this is that older shimmer formula where I can't swatch it with my fingers, but the colors are really special. And I feel like they work better than the shimmers in the Citrus Punch. I do really like this as well, though. This is such a, you know, as they call it, like almost like a workhorse palette. I'll hear people talk about, you know, palettes like that, and like this is that for me. And the formula on this, there's definitely nothing wrong with it at all. I'm not a huge fan of this row. Like I can use them, but they are not, like they're just, like these shades are fine. These, especially this one's kind of a dud, to be honest, this sparkly black. This is a really pretty shade. It's just not something I normally am going to use for an eye look. Like I feel like it's a good main character type of shade if you're really into those like rich warm browns, and it's not that it's too warm, it's just, I don't know, it's just not I'm not a neutral eyeshadow wearer in general. If I was, I feel like that would be a favorite shade. Even though I really love this color story, this one is, I think, going to have to win because the formula is overall really good. And I also know that I have another pastel palette that would beat this one out. So I'm going to have the Dollhouse continue, say goodbye to Fairy Tale Fairies. So now if we're comparing, actually no, I'm not doing that yet. I'm just gonna move over here. So that means that we have left Sickly Sweet and C'est La Vie. This isn't gonna be a big decision because I already know I'm gonna pick Sickly Sweet, but I'll just do a brief talk. This one, yeah, like just looking at, I'm not a great eyeshadow wearer. The shimmers are great. This row down here is actually really great, as are these. It's just the grays that I am not into. And so, you know, if it wasn't for that, maybe it would stand a chance, but nothing is going to stand a chance against my beloved Sickly Sweet palette, at this time anyway. So yeah, this is going to be my winner. I love the pastels in here. The shimmers I love as well. They're really sparkly. So this is going to be top. Okay, these are the final 5 palettes. And I realized that we're gonna have sort of an extra one out. So the original plan was to have Rogue and Stone Vibes go against each other. And so I think I'm gonna stick with that. And then also would have been Dollhouse and Sickly Sweet. And I'm gonna have the Pacific Northwest palette battle it out in the final round. Since it is the newest, then, you know, it has the best chance of beating the victor. So, oh wait, but then there's another round. Okay, you know, it's fine. We'll figure this out. I'm just kind of making this up as I go, if you can't tell. The Stone Vibes palette, it might look a little funny because I am going to try to have the picture overlaid with my actual palette here. But I want to be able to look at mine as I'm talking about it. But yeah, I'm going to go back to what I said, that the mattes for the Stone Vibes palette were never a favorite. Both the colors, the uses of them, like, they're fine. I've used this palette to travel with because it gives me like the basics and slap on a shimmer and, you know, we're good to go. But if I'm really going to want, you know, good mattes and really good shimmers, then that's going to have to go to the Rogue palette. So Stone Vibes is going to be bowing out at this time. So we have the Rogue palette is the winner there. We're going to have Blend Bunny against Blend Bunny. So I think at the base of it all, I am a colorful eyeshadow wearer. So even though this is colorful, and I like that I get some variety with this, and it's, you know, very helpful for grounding other looks or bringing in certain shades that I need. I like the different tones. It has to go to Sickly Sweet between these two, just because I do really love pastels on myself, and I love the brightness and fun that I get with this palette. And this is also really easy, that I can just use, you know, a couple eyeshadows and feel good. Whereas this one, I kind of feel like I'm more drawn to like doing a full gradient type of look every time. Not that you have to, it just, this palette makes you want to do that. So Dollhouse is not going to be a winner. Okay, then I feel like maybe we'll do the 2 indie palettes here. Between these two, what could beat out my Sickly Sweet? I don't know. Let's see, we'll have them all just kind of here. Because this is basically, you know, we're going for first, second, third place right now. I would say Dollhouse was 4th place, just because it had to go up against Sickly Sweet. It would definitely be above Stone Vibes. It's just kind of funny that Stone Vibes is sitting right in the middle of my palette collection, considering how old it is and things like that. So it just kind of, you know, hey, good for you, palette. All right, so for 3rd place, it's hard because I like the mattes and shimmers for all of these. I like the condensed nature of the Rogue palette. I like, you know, that there are some kind of interesting shades going on in here that I don't have elsewhere in my collection. I think if I'm going between looking at all these, I think this is going to be my 3rd place palette though, because as much as I love the colors in here, I am more of a fan of purples and those types of shimmers than I am the greens. Like I have come into the understanding that green is a good eyeshadow color on me that I enjoy, but I think I'm still going to enjoy these a bit more on the regular basis. Like there's just something about them, and also these are shiftier than, like, some of these shades have a shift to them, but they're not as strong of a shift as these are, and that is something very special to me. So yeah, I'm gonna say that this is 3rd place, which is still very, very good. So, you know, well done, Nomad Pacific Northwest palette. between these two. I think if I wanted to go for just a small palette, that this one would be good. So, you know, maybe, not that I necessarily would travel with this because it's a little bit more work to do a look. It doesn't have to be, but I don't know. I should try just seeing, can I do something simple with this, and would this be something I'd want to travel with? But usually I travel for a long while, like a couple weeks or so, and so I don't know, I feel like I would maybe get a little tired of this for 2 weeks. That's kind of my thinking here. But you know, maybe I could think about it at some point. But when I come to this palette, like this would not be a travel palette. I am considering at some point in the future, especially if the quality of this starts to go down, buying their replacement palette. Not their replacement, but buying a replacement, because they have a new version of this, which is magnetic, and it is smaller because there's fewer shades. So maybe with the idea that I could just pull out some of the shades and put them in a travel palette, or maybe because it's smaller, I could travel with it. I'm not sure. But yeah, I would consider that in the future. But at this time, I like the shimmers more in here, although I get more variety in here. I think the Sickly Sweet might still be my winner, but honestly, it's very close because this is actually really pretty, which makes me a little sad that I haven't used it more this year. I guess I used it a lot at the start of the year. I just haven't been using it as much recently. So I need to do more of that. I have gotten a lot of use out of this palette this year, so I feel good about that. All right, so we're gonna go first place, second place, third place, and there you go, Dollhouse, fourth place. So those are going to be my winners for this tournament. And what's kind of fun is that if I was to do this again, they might get paired up differently, and who knows how the rankings would go at that rate. And I know I didn't rank the bottom set. I mean, like I said, Stone Vibes, I guess, would be in 5th place. But to me, like, they got ruled out so quickly that, you know, I would want to be able to compare them against each other to really figure that out. But yeah, this, I feel good about my top 5. So hopefully this was interesting or fun for you to watch. And I want to thank you for being here. Until my next video, I hope you'll be doing well, and I'll see you then. Bye.